So what do we understand by thermal stresses? Basically, humans and, so to say, mammals, they have efficient internal temperature regulating systems which maintain their stable body temperatures, be it in terms of cold winters or their warm summers, as we understand in the context of homeostatic conditions, right? If we talk about the archaeological evidences, the environment which happened in like 3 to 4 million years ago, they have determined the whole course of evolution again. Definitely, environment played a major role in the theory of evolution, because over the time we adopted behaviorally, we adapted physiologically, and in fact the existence of colonial behavior, setting up of colonies at different places, be it in Egypt, China, India, everywhere they had a different behavioral mechanism, they had a different physiological adaptation, because they had a different environmental exposure, they had a different stress related conditions, right? Now if we had to talk about the normal core temperature, human beings basically regulate it within the range of 35 to 41 degrees Celsius. Okay, humans encounter thermal stresses, be it heat or cold, from the climatic conditions which are tackled with their behavioral methods such as insulation, or with respect to the physiological changes, as in when we are exposed to heat stress, we sweat a lot, so that it's a form of a cooling mechanism again. Shivering is a form of response to cold stresses, where we are trying to generate heat by producing tensions in our muscles, right? So in order to ensure homeostasis, different behavioral methods, different physiological adaptation takes place, physiological changes takes place. So we categorize it in two parallel processes, and we cannot say that if physiology is happening, behavior is not happening. They go simultaneously, so therefore it's considered as a parallel process. So if we talk about physiological changes, they are independent of any conscious voluntary behavior. Like if we talk about the basal metabolic heat, basal metabolic rate, or the metabolic heat production, the body heat distribution, the mechanism of sweating, these are all they are independent of conscious voluntary behavior activities. Simultaneously, we have behavioral processes which are conscious behavior, such as we adhere to certain clothing patterns. If instance we are exposed to heat, we seek shelters, right? So these things are a sort of human behavioral processes. Now in humans, the physiological thermoregulation becomes more important during the heat stress, and the behavioral thermoregulation is important during the cold stress, because in cold stress it is tough to, like, our body is physiologically adapted to produce heat. That is the general mechanism that we have inherited over generations, but that heat is not sufficient to survive in extreme cold stress related situations. Therefore we need to have a behavioral thermoregulation. But in case of heat, in case of exposure to heat stresses, our body has a mechanism of adapting to sweating a lot, right? You sweat a lot, that acts as a cooling mechanism. But again, in extreme conditions, extremest of all conditions, these physiological thermoregulations also do not work. Like sweating does not really work, because people do get dehydrated, people can faint. This could be leading to ultimate situations, right? So in a general sense, if we had to say, in the heat stresses we are physiologically regulating our temperature, but in terms of cold stresses we are behaviorally regulating our temperatures. So these definitions we discussed. In addition to this definition, adaptation becomes an act to defend our body temperatures, to reduce the physiological strains, right, to improve our work capabilities, and reduce the susceptibility to thermal injuries. So not just talking about adjustment or the system of, or a state of a living person, but also the adjustments that we are doing behaviorally to increase our efficiency, increase our capabilities, and reduce our exposure to injuries. Okay, so I'm pretty sure in your 12th class you would have heard of these terms, ectotherms and endotherms. Who have their internal temperature that varies considerably, right? the name given to them when we studied was poikilotherms, that is cold-blooded animals. As and when the temperature changes, their internal physiology also changes accordingly. But we being like humans being endotherms, they can maintain their body temperatures within the narrow range that we have already talked. So we are called as homeotherms. So these terms needs to be understood. This could be asked in your definitions also. Now to maintain these balances, to do a thermoregulation within our body, to maintain that body temperature, there are two ways. First is heat production and second is heat loss. When we talk of heat production, basically a certain amount of energy is required to sustain a body's vital functions, right? It's understood as basal metabolic rate, which is a part of your metabolism. Your even when you take food, when you do your exercises, you are producing energy. So that minimum energy that is required for your organs to sustain, for your vital functions to continue further, that heat is required. And therefore it's very important that in exposures to your cold stresses, heat production is sufficient. As I talked, in extreme of cold stresses, if at all your energy is not able to sustain, the amount of heat that you have in your body is not able to sustain your vital organs, then probably you will be exposed to thermal injuries, hypothermia होने के chances रहते हैं, right? So therefore it's a part of your metabolism, your muscular activities, and your dietary intake also. The second regulation is through your heat loss. Now depending on the temperature gradient between your body and your surrounding objects, the heat loss could happen, right? So we have basically there are four ways. One is also the radiation. We'll be talking it in the simultaneous classes. So conduction, convection, and evaporation. Conduction as in when your body, in your chemistry classes also you would have heard of it, when you transfer, when your body heat is transferred by direct contact with something, as in molecule to molecule transfer, is called as conduction. Convection may basically because of the temperature gradient from warm area to the cool area, the movement of molecules happen. It's also called as a wind chill effect. For instance, if you talk about air conditioned room and the simultaneous room where you are sitting with a fan, that difference you can see, and the cool air coming inside, warm air going into the air conditioned room is a good example of convection mechanism. Third is evaporation, where we talk about sweating, right? Inversely, it is proportional to humidity. And when we talked about the people living in colder climates, they are having shorter limbs. Why is it so? Because shorter or lesser is the surface area, lesser will be the heat release, lesser will be the heat loss of their body. Similarly, in African communities, when we talk, people have longer extremities. Why so? Because longer is the extremity, larger is the surface area of the body. In fact, they had long statures also, long height. So more is the body exposed to your stress related environment, more is the surface area, and therefore more is your heat loss, and therefore better is the cooling mechanism for your body. So that's how physiology works. Now there are two forms of thermal injuries, if we had to speak. There is one, hypothermia and hyperthermia. Hypothermia may basically are affected by low temperatures, specifically when you are living in the colder climates. There could be a life-threatening drop in your core body temperature. It varies with respect to your individual differences in metabolism. Definitely for some people, like if I had to say, when we went to Rohtang Pass, my youngest brother fainted, but nothing happened to us or me or my family or anybody else. So different metabolism, different hormonal level, different form of heat production within your body, be it any ways, your dietary or your physical activity, anything affects your risk of having a thermal injury. Also, because in elderly people, they have limited heat production, plus their metabolism is slower, weaker, so it's observed that these risks are quite higher in the elderly people. Now it begins to occur when the core body temperature drops to 94 degree Fahrenheit. So it's the extremest of all conditions. Rapid decline in temperature can result in death, There are rare cases when people have revived after temperature dropped to 57 to 60 degree Fahrenheit. For instance, there was this Swedish woman in 1999. She was trapped in an ice sheet in a freezing water for like 80 minutes, and after 80 minutes she was found unconscious. Her heart was almost it was not beating, and eventually she revived. That was a miracle sort of thing. She revived despite that her body temperature has dropped down to 56.7 degree Fahrenheit. So these are very rarest of conditions, but again it would have been responsible because of her metabolism. I don't know what was the reason. It could be a miracle again, but so these are the rarest of all conditions. The second thermal injury, if I had to talk, is about the hyperthermia, which is affected by high temperature, as in the extremely hot climates, or also in sometime it could be a result of uncontrollable infections. Why so? Some infections are more prone to happen in your humid areas, or where you are in hotter climates, so to say. So these could be one example. Now your core body temperature basically rise to extremely fatal levels, right? So these are very extreme conditions that we are talking about. It does not happen often. Uncontrollable in stress because of your metabolism and things like that. So these are extremest of all situations. You do not often get to see them in a normal day-to-day basis. In case of hyperthermia, the life-threatening situations happen when there is a temperature rise to almost 105 to 107. So if at all we have a fever, it goes maximum to 104. Yeah, but that could not be an infection, right? Plus, in case of hyperthermia, we have a deterioration of our internal organs, and that could be a consequent cause of death in hypothermia. Also, in hypothermia, also we see that heat production is lowered. Heat is not generated, which is able to sustain our internal organs, and therefore the deterioration of internal organs happen, and therefore it causes death. Right? So in both the situations, the internal organs are the ultimately affected ones.